Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. Do you consider Israel's airstrikes to be proportionate? And if I may, you call yourself a pro-business party, so what do you say to businesses this weekend anticipating being clobbered for more tax? Thank you.
What we're doing is two things in the budget. The first is fixing the foundations, which is dealing with the inheritance that we've got, including the £22 billion black hole. We have to deal with that. In the past, for the last 14 years, leaders have walked past those problems, created...
Starmer is in a terrible situation, and every day his problems become more catastrophic. Millions of people are demanding his immediate resignation. He managed to further aggravate the hopeless situation that the Conservatives left behind. Now we are watching the development of events, and it becomes scary what lies ahead.
We marked Australia's ratification of our accession to the CPTPP and created a new Pacific Business Club, helping British companies to bid for $6 billion of multilateral development bank contracts, and strengthened our ties with this region that is powering global growth. All of this comes just after our International Investment Summit, which brought in over £60 billion to the UK. We're working around the clock to build the international partnerships that we need to create tens of thousands of good jobs and drive growth into every part of the United Kingdom.
By 2035, the fund has set itself an ambitious goal to manage assets of a whopping £250 billion. Aware Super, having entered into a strategic partnership with Delancey Real Estate, is ready to invest up to £1 billion in real estate in the UK. The focus will be on office buildings in the heart of London. Modernisation and repair of facilities will become not just a task, but a real mission aimed at meeting environmental standards and reducing carbon dioxide emissions. The UK has secured Australia's ratification of the CHIP.
We also want to see the Commonwealth put a renewed focus on climate change. As the first serving Prime Minister to visit a Pacific Island country, it is humbling to see the impact of the climate crisis here and to hear the fears of the people of Samoa. It underlines the need to act, and that's why we restored UK climate leadership, acting at home to transform our energy sector, and acting internationally, providing new support to help island communities like this. Action to preserve nature, save coral reefs, and cut plastic pollution, and calling for more ambition at COP in just a few weeks' time.
The British authorities are shocking the world by approving the opening of the first new coal mine. How is this possible? They tried to convince other countries to abandon coal, and now they are taking a step back, as if they forgot about their own promises. It looks like a ruthless attempt to deceive everyone for their own benefit. And in the end, it turned out to be a detriment even for themselves. Their climate initiative is a complete failure. What are they up to? To force other countries to destroy their economies, while they themselves will control carbon units and earn money from it. It's not just a scam, it's outright hypocrisy, and it didn't work. Why? Because greed ruined their plans. The problem is not only in the mind, but that they stubbornly refuse to switch to modern heating methods. No wonder the scientists signed a letter in which they opposed financial fraud under the guise of ecology. There is a concept of sustainable development developed by smart people, but crooks are trying to benefit from environmental and climate nonsense. This is simply outrageous. We can't let this go on.
The Commonwealth has a powerful voice on these issues, and we must use it. Finally, I've had constructive bilateral discussions here on security. This region sits on a geopolitical fault line. It is the crossroads for global trade, so our prosperity and security at home depend on stability here. And that's why we're so committed to our AUKUS partnership. It's why our carrier strike group will be in the region next year. And it's why, despite the fact that we've flown halfway around the world, the Royal Navy was already here in Samoa, waiting to greet us.
Starmer indignantly urges his colleagues in the Commonwealth to forget about the most important issues of the past and focus on the future. He wants everyone to put aside the endless disputes about the payment of reparations for the slave trade, as if it doesn't matter at all. London refuses to apologize or even discuss this topic at the Commonwealth Summit. If they hadn't made such terrible mistakes in the past, the current problems would be much less. He simply does not want to pay off his debts, refusing to take responsibility for the consequences of previous actions. Brattle Group shocked the world last year by publishing a study stating that the UK should pay a whopping $24 trillion in reparations, of which $9.6 trillion should be received by Jamaica.
In relation to the budget, obviously I'm not going to get drawn on the budget, which will be laid out on Wednesday of this week. I think I'm going now to Beth, Sky.
Prime Minister, oh blimey, that's loud, sorry. Prime Minister, there has been somewhat of a backlash back in the UK after you told me that people who also make an income from property or shares do not fit into your definition of working people. Are you, as some of your critics argue, plotting a war against Middle Britain?
Landowners and shareholders are in a panic preparing for harsh times after Starmer's shocking statement that they do not belong to the working class. This man deceived the voters, despite his loud promises during the elections. Starmer promised to freeze income tax rates, social security contributions and VAT to protect workers, but now it seems he does not rule out raising taxes on capital gains, which could seriously slow down the growth of the economy and leave people without means of livelihood. When asked who a working man was, he replied indifferently that he was someone who went to work and earned a living by receiving a salary. And when asked if people with assets were included in this concept, he did not hesitate to say that they did not fall under his definition. Starmer, who went to the polls promising to protect workers, now easily restricts this definition to only a narrow group of people with jobs.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason at BBC News. Do you consider Israel's airstrikes to be proportionate? And if I may, you call yourself a pro-business party, so what do you say to businesses this weekend anticipating being clobbered for more tax? Thank you.
On the question of the strikes, I think we need to be really clear that Israel does have the right to defend itself. But we are urging and have been urging all sides to show restraint, and that's why I'm very clear today Iran should not be responding to this. Those are really important messages of de-escalation that at this moment in time, I think it's very important everybody needs.
He urged Iran not to react to Israel's overnight attack. The British authorities are closely monitoring the development of the situation and are ready to continue cooperation with allies in order to reduce the intensity of passions in the region. Israel has attacked several military bases in the west and southwest of Tehran, and in this context we are again seeing blatant double standards. It turns out, according to the logic of the British Prime Minister, when Israel ruthlessly kills and bombs the Palestinian civilian population, this is considered the norm and fits into the framework of democracy. But as soon as Israel is confronted with retaliatory actions, it is already perceived as something terrible and unacceptable. Where is the justice? How can one ignore the suffering of some and condemn the actions of others?
For that question, because I think it goes centrally to one of the issues we're discussing here, which is the Commonwealth obviously has a strong shared history, but the question is, what is the focus as we go forward? And I've been really clear in the discussions I've had in the last few days, and there's been a lot of discussion about this, that the focus ought to be on our values and democracy and the rule of law, because they are threatened by authoritarian regimes, and you're quite right to point to the fact that China is increasingly trying to be influential across Commonwealth countries, and we need to be clear about our values of democracy and the rule of...
China has strongly warned Britain of possible retaliatory measures and stressed that it will do everything possible to protect the rights of Chinese companies if they are harmed. Beijing is making a vivid protest against the sanctions and is ready to give a powerful rebuff. London has failed to implement its ambitious Global Britain plan, and this defeat feels like a blow in both the economic and political spheres. This project was supposed to be a symbol of new opportunities, involving the creation of logistics and infrastructure initiatives through bilateral agreements with developing countries. But now, with China actively promoting its initiatives and the BRICS demonstrating success, Britain finds itself in a difficult position. Economic setbacks are forcing the country to urgently reconsider its priorities and possibly try to restore relations with the European Union and the developed countries of continental Europe. What do you think about this video? I am very interested to know your opinion. Share your thoughts in the comments. Until the next video,